Hey guys, so I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about and something a lot of us are familiar with, and that is the topic of the ever more popular depression. So, we've all been told essentially, and what I hear very frequently is that, depression's a chemical imbalance in the brain, yup, check, and it's treated with antidepressants, check, okay, we're done now, that's it. Which, don't get me wrong, I do. I can't not agree with that because both of those things, that is a correct definition of it in a sense, and that is a way to treat it. But, and this might not be a popular opinion, and people might get a little irritated with me, I guess, for thinking this way, but honestly, don't really care. I think that there's so much more to it than that. It's such a complex disease, and there's so many different parts to it that I think to just say that it's a chemical imbalance is not really doing the situation justice. So, of course, there is a chemical imbalance going on. Otherwise, there would be no depression. But what causes that? I mean, of course, there is the case where it is just flat out, no matter what, a chemical imbalance, and that's the end of the story. But a lot more often than you would think, there's something more than that. So, begin just just to start. So there was a really interesting experiment in the 70s where a scientist placed a rat in a box with, or multiple rats in a box that had one bottle of clean drinking water and one bottle of either cocaine or heroin laced drinking water. And overwhelmingly, almost 100% of the time, the rats chose the drug laced water, and then they indulged in that water until they overdosed and died. So they literally ended up killing themselves. So then, I believe it was in 1978, a doctor by the name of Bruce Alexander he redid this study, but this time he put in, it was like a community of rats. There was male and female rats. They had toys, they had tunnels, they had everything a rat could need to be happy in life. And interestingly enough, the rats, almost 100% of the time, chose the clean drinking water. So even though these results were meant to be, in regards to addiction, in my opinion, because addiction and depression are so closely correlated anyway, you could also use the results of this in a way that, you could help understand depression. And what I mean by that is, so what did those rats have? They had, a sense of community, they had social connection, they had a reason to live because they were, able to roam free and they could play with the ball and stuff and go through tunnels and mate and all that stuff. So, of course, rats aren't as complex as humans, and I understand that. But at a very base level, that goes to show that, pretty much that the reason the rats took the drug water in the first experiment was because they had none of those fundamental needs met. So I think that's very easily believable to you could easily translate that into humans because even though we have more social and like environmental things to deal with than rats, at a base level, we do crave those same things. We do crave human interaction, social connection, reasons to live, things like that. So that's why I get a little irritated whenever people just throw antidepressants in your face and say that that's it. And even doctors do that. That's all doctors do. You're never going to have a doctor say, well, I want to give you these, but I'd like you to go walk your dog for a mile a day and, talk to Bill and Sally with their dogs down the street and, maybe set up a lunch date or start gardening. No, they're going to hand you, a bottle of 30 Prozac and say, come back in a month. So, it's like I said, I just think that they deal with the symptoms as a society. We deal with the symptoms of depression more than we deal with the roots of them. And like I mentioned, I'm not discounting the fact that some people do have a simple, their brain just doesn't produce serotonin at the right level and it needs medication to balance it out. But and I do believe also that those medications have a place in treatment. But what I'm saying is like in my example of it, in my experience, I took those I took those antidepressants to rip me out of the mud, and then I built a life that was worth living. I, I gained a social network. I gained, happiness at my job. I gained, value for my life. I set goals that I wanted to reach. I woke up every day with a purpose. And all of a sudden that depression dissipates. And then even though I stopped taking my meds, I'm okay still. And I'm not saying I will be forever, but what I'm telling you right now is that there's, you know, pretty much data supporting this, this way I look at it. Like there was a brilliant journalist named Johan Hari, and he talks about how he met this, I believe he was a psychiatrist in like London, I think, and his name is Sam Everington. So this doctor had, a bunch of like clinically depressed patients, and instead of giving them meds, he ordered all of them to work on this project out behind his office, which was this just trashed alley with stray dogs in it and everything. And over the course of time that they were working on it as a group, all of a sudden they have something to look forward to. They have some sense of purpose. And perhaps most importantly, in my opinion, they have that social connection with other people that are also even better going through the same thing they're going through. And all of his patients started to report, without any antidepressants, as far as the medications go, they started to feel better and their lives started to get better and their outlook on life started to get better. So, I just really think that as a society, we look at the phrase antidepressant. Even I looked it up on Webster's dictionary because, I do research things before I talk about them, even though I'm familiar with a lot of them. You can never know too much. And it flat out essentially says that it's a pill that, combats depression. It never says that, going into nature and having some kind of spiritual awakening can be an antidepressant, or, reconnecting with some friends from college can be an antidepressant, but those things can. There is a story it originated in South Africa, where this rice farmer got through whatever accident he lost his leg, and whenever he was working in the rice fields, he became miserable. It was hard, like being in the water hurt his amputated leg. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor instead gave him a cow, and he gave him people to talk to and to listen. And all of a sudden, he started to feel better because he removed the thing that was depressing him. And even more importantly than that, he started to have some of those biological needs met. He actually felt like he was doing something that he enjoyed, which, was tending to that cow. He had a social connection with those people, and he had a renewed reason to live. So, there's all kinds of evidence. Like, I'm probably going to end up doing a part 2 to this video because of how much I want to talk about it and how passionate I am about this. Because I just know so many people that they go and see a therapist that they don't even really open up to, and that that therapist or whatever psych doctor at that facility just writes them a script, and they walk out and they take these meds, and they artificially on the surface might feel better, but a lot of times they don't even. And it's because it's not even people's faults, because if you have the medical community telling you, hey, this pill is all you need to get better, why would you not believe it, right? So what I've been doing lately, because I kind of have a problem with listening to things that are told to me without questioning them, and a lot of times it pays off for me, but I started to really look at this thing and look outside the box, because I was considering getting on antidepressants again due to an episode, somewhat recently. I guess it's been a while now, but I just, even though I'm a huge fan of them to an extent, and I think they do great work, I just was like, there has to be something else going on here. And even though it was all right in front of me the whole time, it wasn't until I really dug into this, information, that I really started to have these realizations that we're pretty much putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound whenever we just tell people to take this pill and then that's it and don't change anything. So, I'm almost positively going to do a part 2 to this video now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, if I guess I just challenge you, if you're willing to help yourself progress and you want to feel better, look at your social interactions right now. Like, are you isolating? Look at, do you have any like clear goals that you're striving towards? Do you have, what's really bothering you? What's really holding you back? And look at the root of that problem, because then once you identify that, then you can really start to work on it. And I'm not discrediting psychiatrists or anything, because I've met some brilliant psychiatrists in my life and they do absolutely phenomenal work. But what I'm saying is, I guess in addition to those, look outside the box and try and work on some stuff that your primary care physician might not suggest to you, and just see what happens. What's the worst that's going to happen if you try to increase the amount of people you talk to during the day, or try and set goals for yourself? Not really anything bad's going to happen from that, because at least you're doing more than you were doing yesterday, right? So keep that in mind, and until next time, have a wonderful day.